Motorcyclist kicks blind man's German Shepherd as a joke, not knowing the dog is a canine dog. Don't forget to subscribe to the Stories of Life's Acts channel. And before we continue this story, let us know where you are from. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe as we release videos every day at 12:30 p.m. Jake, a notorious motorcycle racer in town, was always looking for mischievous pranks to show off. With his buzz cut, black leather jacket, and the roar of his big motorcycle echoing through the streets, he did not care about the consequences of his reckless actions. One hot summer afternoon, Jake and his friends gathered at a roadside cafe, where he often told stories of his wild antics to grab attention. At that moment, across the street on the sidewalk, a middle-aged man wearing dark sunglasses was slowly walking, tightly holding the leash of a large German Shepherd. The dog's dark golden fur and calm demeanor drew the attention of many people around. The man was Martin, a retired police officer who had lost his sight in an accident. His loyal companion Rex wasn't just an ordinary guide dog, it was a former canine that had made countless heroic deeds in the police force. Jake, with his competitive nature, quickly thought up a cruel prank. "Watch me mess with that dog over there," he said to his friends while revving the motorcycle, preparing to take action. No one in the group objected, and some even laughed eagerly, anticipating a humorous spectacle in their minds. The motorcycle roared to life, and Jake sped toward Martin and Rex. As he passed by, he kicked the dog's side without hesitation. Rex was caught off guard, taking a small step back, but its eyes immediately flashed with suspicion. Martin sensed the unusual movement from Rex and furrowed his brows, realizing something was wrong. Bystanders gasped in shock. Some screamed in horror as they witnessed Jake's cruel act. But there was one thing Jake did not know. He had picked the wrong target. Rex wasn't just an ordinary dog. It was a warrior, trained to handle dangerous situations. And most importantly, it never forgot those who had harmed its owner. Jake's prank was not going to end the way he expected. Jake sped off, laughing gleefully as he heard the shouts from the onlookers. "It is just a dog," he yelled to his friends, twisting the throttle and making smoke billow behind him. But just then, a low growl echoed from Rex, showing no sign of fear, only the cold fury of a warrior who had been provoked. Martin, though unable to see what was happening, could still sense the change in Rex's demeanor. He gently tugged on the leash, signaling for the dog to stay calm, but Rex had been insulted. A canine never forgets the one who attacks it. With years of trained reflexes, Rex did not wait for an order. It growled and spun around, charging straight into the street at an incredible speed. The crowd was startled, some screamed in warning, but Jake, used to ruling the streets, was unconcerned. However, when he glanced at the rearview mirror, a sight made him shiver. Rex was speeding toward him, eyes cold and sharp like a predator locking onto its prey. "What the hell is this?" Jake screamed, quickly accelerating, but he did not know that once a canine was on a chase, the prey was nearly impossible to escape. Rex leaped across the road with powerful strides, each muscle in its body stretching taut like a true fighting machine. It didn't bark or growl, just total focus on the one who dared provoke it. The former canine was not just a guide dog, it was an elite warrior, trained to neutralize a target in an instant. Jake had never felt so scared. His heart raced, his hands gripped the handlebars as he weaved through the crowded streets. But no matter how fast he sped, the distance between him and Rex continued to close. At a street corner, Martin stood still, feeling Rex's powerful steps fade in the distance. He slightly curved his lips, knowing Rex would never let the one who harmed it off the hook. Passers-by around him began to talk, some even pulling out their phones to capture this unbelievable scene. Jake thought he could easily escape a dog, but he had forgotten that Rex was no ordinary dog. And this was only the beginning. Jake revved the throttle, swerving through the streets at breakneck speed. But no matter how fast he went, Rex stayed right on his tail, its wild eyes burning with a terrifying determination. Its fighting instincts had been triggered, and it would not stop until the mission was complete. Suddenly, a traffic light turned red right in front of him. Jake intended to brake hard, but panic made him hesitate. A car from the side street sped toward him, forcing him to swerve sharply onto the shoulder. The tires screeched, and he nearly lost control. In that moment, Rex seized the opportunity, leaping onto the sidewalk and cutting off Jake's path. He gritted his teeth, twisting the throttle to get ahead, but Rex came at him like a living bullet. A perfect leap brought it up right next to Jake. Without hesitation, Rex lunged, its sharp teeth sinking into Jake's arm. "Ah!" exclamation mark. Jake screamed, the handlebars shaking violently as he lost balance. The sharp pain forced him to release one hand, losing complete control. The motorcycle wobbled and slammed into a traffic sign, throwing Jake onto the ground. Rex landed gracefully, its eyes never leaving Jake, who was writhing on the street. It slowly walked toward him, step by step, like a ghost of vengeance. And this was just the beginning of the punishment. Jake lay in pain on the road, his arm bleeding from Rex's powerful bite. His motorcycle tipped over, its engine still roaring faintly. A sharp pain shot through him as he tried to push himself up, but the solid black figure of Rex stood directly in front of him. Its eyes glinted coldly, no longer the gentle guide dog, but a warrior waiting for its command. Rex slowly approached, growling menacingly. Jake tried to crawl backward, but his back hit the traffic sign. Now he had nowhere to hide. Martin, though unable to see, walked forward with an unsettling calmness. He placed his hand on Rex's back, signaling for it to stop. Rex paused, but kept its eyes locked on Jake. "You made a big mistake, kid," Martin's steady voice spoke. A canine never forgets, and it does not forgive. The sound of police sirens echoed in the distance. The crowd that had witnessed the whole incident now had someone calling the authorities. Jake knew he had really gotten himself into trouble this time. The sirens grew louder, and the red and blue lights flashed, reflecting off the windows of the buildings lining the street. The crowd began to stir more. Some people raised their phones to record the scene, while others whispered among themselves about what had just happened. Jake was still in pain, his hand trembling as he tried to push himself up from the pavement. But before he could do anything more, Rex growled again, a deep rumble that felt like a final warning. Despite the overwhelming fear, Jake still tried to act calm. I was just kidding," he stammered, trying to sound nonchalant, but his shifty eyes betrayed him. Martin tilted his head slightly toward him. Even though he could not see, his voice still carried power. "You think kicking a guide dog for a blind person is a joke? But Rex is not just a guide dog. It is a canine officer trained to protect and enforce justice. And you have just made a big mistake." Jake opened his mouth to argue, but the heavy footsteps of the police officers approached from behind. A uniformed officer walked up, his face stern. The badge on his chest gleamed, reflecting the streetlights. "What is going on here?" The officer scanned the area, his gaze stopping on Jake, who was nervously lying on the ground, then shifting to Rex, still in a defensive stance, ready to strike if its owner commanded it. One person in the crowd immediately spoke up. "That guy kicked the dog for no reason. The dog was just doing its job." Another added, "Not only that, that dog is a canine. It used to work in the police force." The officer narrowed his eyes, his sharp gaze fixed on Jake. "You attacked a canine officer?" Jake shook his head frantically. "No, I didn't know. I just thought it was a regular dog. I didn't mean to dash. Did not mean to?" The officer's voice was cold. "Do you know that attacking a canine officer can be prosecuted as attacking a police officer?" Jake froze, his face turning pale. "What exclamation mark? But I didn't hit a person. It doesn't matter. Rex is not just a regular dog. It is a retired police officer, but still retains all the rights of an active officer." The officer signaled to a colleague, "Arrest him. We will review the charges." Jake struggled as the handcuffs were placed on him, his eyes full of desperation. "No, wait, I can't be arrested just for kicking a dog." Martin raised an eyebrow, his voice steady but cold. "A canine officer is not just a dog, and you will learn that the hard way." As Jake was escorted into the police car, Rex lifted its head, its eyes still fixed on him. It no longer growled, but its cold, piercing stare was a clear warning. Those who do wrong would always pay the price. The police car door slammed shut, the siren blaring as it carried Jake further away. The crowd began to disperse, but many continued to talk about what had just happened. Martin knelt down and gently placed his hand on Rex's head. "Good job, old friend." Rex let out a soft whine, rubbing its head against Martin's hand as a confirmation. Even though retired, even though no longer an active officer, a canine warrior would always remain loyal to justice. And justice had been served. Martin stood up, his legs slightly shaky from the events, but his hands remained steady on Rex's leash. The atmosphere around them quieted as the crowd dispersed, leaving only a few curious onlookers who continued to watch the police car fade into the darkness. "Let us go, Rex." He gently patted the dog's head, signaling it to continue walking. Rex let out a soft whine and walked alongside its owner, as if nothing had happened. Under the yellowed streetlights, Martin walked slowly back home, memories from the past flooding back. He remembered the first time he met Rex at the Canine Training Center. Back then, it was just a playful puppy, but its eyes already carried a determination that few dogs possessed. Martin, still a young police officer at the time, immediately felt a connection with Rex. They went through tough times together, chasing criminals, long nights of patrols. Rex was not only a teammate, but also family, the most loyal friend he had. But everything changed 5 years ago, during a mission. While chasing an armed criminal, Rex had jumped in front of Martin, taking a bullet to his side. Martin would never forget the feeling of panic when Rex's blood stained his hands. Fortunately, Rex survived, but the injury left it unable to continue its duties. It was retired, and Martin decided to adopt it as a way to repay his loyal companion. Once home, Martin opened the door and removed Rex's leash. "Rest now, old friend. You did great today." Rex wagged its tail lightly before jumping onto its familiar bed in the corner of the room. But just as Martin thought everything was over, a knock at the door sounded unexpectedly. He frowned. It was not often that someone came by at this hour. He opened the door, and standing before him was the officer who had arrested Jake earlier. "Mr. Martin, I need to inform you of something." Martin furrowed his brows. "What is it?" The officer looked around, then spoke quietly. "Jake is not just an ordinary thug. We have checked his record and found that he is linked to a drug trafficking ring. Not only that, but he also has a previous conviction for assaulting an officer 3 years ago, though somehow he got away with it." Martin clenched his fists. "What do you mean? I think tonight's incident was not just a spontaneous attack. He may have recognized you or Rex. If his gang finds out Rex was a canine officer, I fear they won't just let it go." The room fell silent. Martin looked down at Rex, still lying there, its sharp eyes seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation. The officer continued, "We will keep an eye on him, but you should be careful. If anything suspicious happens, let us know immediately." Martin nodded. "I understand. Thank you." After the officer left, Martin closed the door and sighed. He had hoped that life after retirement would be more peaceful, but it seemed the past was not ready to let go of him just yet. Rex jumped up, its eyes fixed on Martin as if awaiting orders. Martin knelt down and gently stroked its thick fur. "What do you think, Rex? Looks like we are caught up in something big again, huh?" Rex let out a low whine, then nudged its head against Martin's hand. No matter what, they would face it together. Both of them understood that a canine warrior never retreats. A few days later, a quiet evening was broken by an unusual noise outside the window. Martin, with the instincts of a former police officer, immediately sensed something was wrong. He reached for the gun he kept in the drawer and signaled to Rex to stay silent. When Martin cracked the curtain open, he saw the silhouette of a man standing at the street corner, eyes constantly scanning the area. A black car was parked a few meters away from his house, engine still running. "They are here," Martin whispered. He quickly turned off all the lights in the house, using the darkness to his advantage. Rex stood close beside him, quiet but ready for action. The sound of footsteps crunching on gravel reached his ears. A shadow leaped over the fence. Before the intruder could move further, Martin aimed his gun through the window and shouted, "Freeze!" The man flinched, but immediately drew his own gun. Without hesitation, Martin fired, the bullet grazing the man's shoulder, causing him to stumble and fall. At that moment, Rex charged forward, knocking the man to the ground, its sharp teeth sinking into his arm. The man screamed in pain, but his companions, who had been waiting in the car, rushed out. A gunfight erupted in the middle of the quiet neighborhood. Martin ducked behind a wall, aiming carefully at the next assailant's leg, bringing him down. But the remaining attackers were not ready to give up easily. Just then, the sound of police sirens echoed from a distance. The remaining criminals quickly fled, leaving their wounded comrade behind. Rex kept its grip on the initial intruder, not letting him move. When the police arrived, they swiftly subdued and arrested all of the criminals. Martin sighed in relief, stroking Rex's head. "Once again, you saved me." The young police officer approached with a smile. "We arrived just in time, didn't we? Good thing you reacted so quickly." Martin looked down at his loyal companion. "Not just me, but Rex too. A canine warrior never gives up." Rex wagged its tail, as if proud of what it had just done. The battle was over, but their bond of friendship would last forever. They had fought together, and they would continue to stand side by side, no matter what the future held. Thank you all for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best stories. See you in the next one.